When it comes to the violin, bad habits can take as long to unlearn as they did to learn. I'm Matt Stolling, and this is the first video in a new series called Breaking Bad Habits. We're going to catch those pesky bad habits and break them right off. Some of the students that have come to me after playing for a few years have developed bad habits in the process, especially when it comes to technique. A very common bad habit is to play with flat fingers on the left hand, or a combination of bent and flat fingers when you play the violin. And if you have that bad habit, or if you're a beginner violinist and want to nip it in the bud, listen up. So first of all, the idea of playing with the left hand is that you want to be able to play fast and effortlessly at the same time. To accomplish that, you must use the least amount of movement. So the way to do that is actually to bend here at the knuckles. Now, this is what I'm talking about. Okay, so the joint I'm talking about is actually this joint right here that tends to be flat with especially beginners. This is obviously going to be bent because otherwise you wouldn't be able to actually play the violin at all. So, but this is the joint you want to look out for. This is what you want to have bent like this. So this is the right way. And you see what a striking difference there is there in terms of the effortlessness in moving from finger to finger, and they're just right there ready to hit down, ready to strike down the fingerboard. It makes it so much easier. And also you may, say, okay, I'm playing with bent fingers, I'm doing it right. But then some fingers where you're reaching, some of them are bent, but some of them are not. And that's where you really want to be able to detect that and sort of address it, right? So if I was going to play a lot of those kind of notes, you notice how I'm jumping around the violin, but it's very effortless. And how am I able to do this? Let me explain that to you right now. So a big part of playing the violin is going to come down to rotation in the arm and in the hand here. So that rotation is really crucial for playing the violin. So the rotation I'm actually talking about here is one that happens in the left wrist area. So if you're just going to hold up the arm in a totally natural way without rotating at all, it's going to be like that. And that wouldn't be easy to play the violin this way. So you have to rotate this wrist a little bit inwards. It may hurt a little bit in the beginning, but then you get used to it. So now you can see how you're closer to being able to play the violin on the fingerboard correctly. Now, what I'm also doing is I'm actually rotating my arm, my entire arm inwards, so it's just sitting across from my ribs here, and it's almost touching my rib cage. So that combination is really great, and now all of a sudden I'm able to play those low notes on the G string. So let me show you the actual difference here. So without the rotation, see, I'm really far away from the fingers and far away from where I need to go. And with the rotation, all of a sudden everything changes, right? The whole setup becomes much easier for me to play. And something I also want to mention as part of that is notice where here, these knuckles here, right? They're kind of below the fingerboard when I'm just holding it without the rotation. So again, I'm coming from below and up. That's not as good as coming from above. See, now all of a sudden, these are on top of the fingerboard here, and all of a sudden, much easier to reach. So that's another advantage, is you're actually coming from above versus kind of below here. And you may be asking at this point, how am I supposed to do this? You may actually have already tried to do it, and it was difficult for you to do, or it even hurt you a little bit to get that rotation happening. And the truth is, everybody's anatomy is a little bit different. For some people, it's harder to get that rotation, and for some people, they may be, double jointed, meaning that they have more of a tendency to play with flat fingers naturally. So even the more reason to really kind of catch yourself when that happens and be able to really really make sure that you play correctly. And I played for 35 years. In the beginning, for me, it was uncomfortable too, but once you get a hang of it, it'll just become completely second nature, and you'll be able to play for a long time. Truth of the matter is, violin is a little bit of an awkward position to hold it up like this, but again, the more you do it, the more you get used to it, and it will be no big deal. So the rotation I'm talking about, it actually depends a lot about where you are with your left hand. So if you're playing on the E string here, the highest string, it's actually quite easy to bend these knuckles. You're right next to it, so everything is very bent this way. And also, you don't really do a lot of rotation in the arm itself. Most of the rotation happens in the wrist. So you have a little bit of this going on, but the arm, when I look down here, I can just see a sliver of my elbow, and that's a good sign. That's kind of where you want to be on the E string, right? But as you move to the lower strings, the A string, you start rotating that arm a little bit over, D string a little bit more, and the G string even more. And so also with the G string, when you play the fourth finger, that's the one that's the hardest to reach in first position. You're going to rotate that the most versus first finger in the E string, you're going to rotate that the least, right? So when you're on the G string, a lot of rotation, and when you go up in position, now this is really when you end up rotating a lot. Now I'm touching here because you gotta simply move the arm up, and to reach those low notes on the G string up in position, you gotta have a lot of rotation. So the point is, you're constantly moving and adjusting when you play the violin. It's never a static thing. So to get better at this aspect of playing, you must practice slowly and make sure that everything that you're playing is going to be with the correct use of your left arm and fingers. In order to do this, the best way is to practice scales going up and down to really get the right feeling in the fingers. Let me demonstrate that. So notice how my arm in that case was moving throughout that scale, right? My wrist is constantly adjusting, and also I'm constantly monitoring my bow and my fingers at the same time to make sure that they're doing the right thing. You can't ever trust them. So you got to make sure that they're not, falling into the old bad habit, but actually staying up and doing the right thing. You'll notice how the position of the left hand is different from low to high. I can very highly recommend the exercises called the Stradiec etudes that are all about the left hand and how to get the fingers to fire like little pistons to really kind of get the most out of them. This is how they go. The first one, it's very simple. It's all in the A string to start with. And then you go to the next etude. There are so many of them. And I really like these because you really get to use the fingers in all various combinations, mostly on the A string to start out with, and then you go to different strings and more complicated. And it gives them a great workout. And that's really what you need. You need to train those muscles, and you need to use them the right way a lot of times. So when it gets to be harder pieces and harder material, then you already have that foundation and you can easily access it because you work your way through something very easy to start with. The Stradiec etudes don't, however, deal much with string crossings. So to get the different feel on different strings, I like to practice intervals with different finger combinations starting from low going up. And one such exercise could be from the first to third finger all the way from the G to the E string. And that would be, for example, minor third and then a major third like this. So the minor third would be, and then like that, right? And then you just keep going up. Kind of like that. And what that does really kind of gets you to jump from string to string, and also to, again, quicker move from string to string. So you're monitoring the move here with your arm, you're monitoring the wrist making the movement, and then you're also making sure that these knuckles right up here, especially this last knuckle on the finger, that's bent. So you can do different combinations of that. One kind of tricky combination would be 1, 2, 3, 4 on each string, like this. Right. So on that one, again, you're gonna use more brain power with your bow, and it's just the more advanced you get, the more more obstacles you basically place for yourself, and that's would be a good one. 1, 2, 3, 4 on each string. When trying out these exercises, you may feel, wow, I can't do them at all. A lot of times the flat knuckles are a sign that your finger muscles and hand muscles need some work. So it's great to strengthen those muscles and tendons. For that, you can, for example, have a piece of putty that you can squeeze with your wrist. You can also use a stress ball for that, and you just kind of squeeze them. And again, obviously you want to do it with the left hand, so you squeeze them right here. And you do that for like a few minutes every day. That will increase your strength in your hand. And you can also do the finger strengthen exercise. And there are different ones. The one I like is, kind of press each finger against the thumb, like that. And you just kind of keep going from finger to finger. And once you're done with each finger, they get that rest. So they'll be ready to do it again in about 10 seconds. So that's another very good exercise that will really focus on the fingers. So you've got to do both the hand and the fingers. And you may think that you're getting away with playing with flat knuckles, and it's sort of working out for you. The thing is, when you start playing faster passages, it's not going to work so well. Just check this out. This is flat fingered versus bent fingers. You may notice how the flat fingered approach, a lot more movement. It didn't sound very good. It wasn't very smooth. And versus the bent fingers, that was very smooth. And for me, it just felt much easier. Less strain, less stress. The muscles were more relaxed when I did it. So everything about it is just better. The longevity, a lot of times you play the violin, you get to play fast stuff like that all the time for minutes, for hours sometimes. So in order to actually be able to do that for a long time, you have to find the most effective way, and the bent knuckles is the way to go. And with these bad habits, just remember that practice does not necessarily make perfect. Practice makes permanent. You may practice a bunch of stuff for hours and hours, but if you're going the wrong direction, you will end up in the wrong place. I hope you enjoyed my lesson on keeping the left hand fingers bent. You can find out a whole more about keeping your fingers bent and how to play the violin with my step-by-step program, the Ultimate Violin Course. UVC is 100% online streaming course where you can learn fundamental technique and songs from jazz, pop, classical, and folk. With play-alongs, practice plans, sheet music, and even a private Facebook group, you'll progress from wherever level you're at, and you can stream the lessons from the comfort of your home. I would also love to hear if you have any suggestions for bad habits that you may have or you don't want to develop, then put it for sure in the comments below, and feel free to subscribe to this channel. Take care, everyone, and remember to bend those knuckles and break those bad habits.